Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to put together a field guide to malware. We are going to totally demystify the world of malicious software and give you a simple, clear way to understand any threat you might come across.
All right, so let's just dive right in. We've all heard these words thrown around, right? Sometimes you can't even tell them apart. You'll see a news report that says a virus took down a network, but then some tech blog calls it a worm. It's confusing. Well, that confusion is about to end.
Here's the secret, the key to the whole thing. To cut through all the jargon, you really only need to ask two questions. First, how does it spread? How does it get from point A to point B? This is what the experts call the infection vector. And second, what does it actually do? This is its payload. Seriously, this simple model is our key to understanding this entire topic.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with a quick definition, just to get on the same page. Then we'll break down how malware spreads and what it does, using those two questions. After that, we'll look at how these things get mixed together in modern blended threats, and of course, we'll finish up by talking about how we can actually fight back.
So what are we even talking about here? Well, the word malware is just a mashup of malicious software. That's all it is. At its heart, it's any program that's designed to sneak into your system, usually without you knowing, to do something bad, whether that's stealing your data, messing up your files, or just disrupting everything. It's just code built to cause trouble.
Okay, let's tackle that first big question. How does this stuff propagate? How does malware move around? This is all about its infection vector, and you're going to see that there are really three main strategies that pop up again and again.
First up, we've got the classic virus. The word to remember here is parasitic. A computer virus has to attach itself to something else, like a program file or maybe a document. It absolutely cannot travel on its own. So when you get that infected file and you run it, the virus wakes up and starts looking for other files to infect. It's basically a digital hitchhiker. Next, we have the worm. Now, a worm is totally different from a virus because it's a self-contained program. It doesn't need a ride. It actively looks for ways to spread itself across a network, usually by finding and exploiting some kind of security weakness in the software. It is built from the ground up to replicate and travel all by itself.
So let's really lock this in. A virus is passive. It needs a person to run its host file for it to spread. A worm, on the other hand, is active. It is constantly hunting for new systems to infect across the network, all on its own. The biggest difference, the one to remember, is that a virus needs a host, but a worm is the host.
And our third way malware spreads is the Trojan horse. And yeah, it's just like the myth. This is all about deception. A Trojan disguises itself as something you actually want. A cool game, a useful utility, maybe even a security update. It tricks you into willingly letting it through your defenses. Then, once it's inside, it unleashes its real, hidden, malicious purpose.
Okay, so we've covered how malware gets in. Now for that second question. What does it do once it's on your system? This is the payload. This is the whole point of the attack. Generally, these payloads fall into four main buckets. You've got system corruption, which is just about pure damage, deleting files, scrambling data. Then there's attack agent, which turns your computer into a weapon for the attacker to use. Information theft is pretty self-explanatory. It's digital spying, stealing passwords, personal info, you name it. And finally, stealth is all about hiding, creating backdoors so the attacker can stay undetected and keep control. Let's dig a little deeper into that attack agent category. When malware turns a computer into a remotely controlled zombie or bot, an attacker can link it up with thousands, even millions of other infected machines, and this creates something we call a botnet.
I mean, just think about the power an attacker gets with a zombie army like this. They can command all those computers at once to send out millions of spam emails, or flood a website with so much traffic it gets knocked offline. That's a DDoS attack. Or they can just use them as a launchpad to spread even more malware.
Now let's talk about a really nasty form of system corruption, ransomware. This kind of payload doesn't just delete your files, it encrypts them. It scrambles them into unreadable gibberish. Then it flashes a message on your screen demanding you pay a ransom, usually in cryptocurrency, to get the one and only key that can unlock your precious data. It literally holds your digital life hostage. So, we've got the ways malware spreads, and we've got the things malware does. But out there in the real world, these things are rarely separate. Modern threats are blended. There are a cocktail of different techniques. And this is how malware went from being a simple annoyance to a seriously sophisticated weapon. This brings us to the idea of an advanced persistent threat, or an APT. And this isn't just one program.
It's a whole campaign driven by humans over a long time. It's advanced because they use a whole arsenal of sophisticated tools. It's persistent because these attackers do not give up. They will keep trying to get into a very specific, high-value target. And threat is the right word, because these are often well-funded groups, sometimes even sponsored by nation-states. And you can really see how the stakes have escalated on this timeline. Back in the 80s, viruses were mostly just annoying pranks. By the 90s, worms like Melissa could spread around the globe in hours. Then in the 2000s, things got crazy. Worms like SQL Slammer infected most of the vulnerable internet in just 10 minutes. And then came Stuxnet in the 2010s, a full-blown cyber weapon so sophisticated it could physically destroy industrial equipment in the real world. The game had completely, fundamentally changed.
So, when you're up against threats this sophisticated, how on earth do you fight back? Well, it is a constant digital arms race between the attackers and the defenders, but there is absolutely a clear strategy for defense.
Your first line of defense is and always will be prevention, and that really stands on 3 pillars. First, you've got to mitigate vulnerabilities. Keep your software updated. That closes the doors that worms love to use. Second, limit access. If malware does get in, good access controls can contain the damage. And third, and this is a big one, user awareness. This is our best shield against Trojans and phishing attacks that rely on tricking a human.
But what happens if prevention fails? Then we have to shift gears to a 3-step mitigation process. First, you have to detect that there's even a problem. Then, you have to accurately identify what exactly you're dealing with. And finally, you have to completely remove it, making sure no little pieces are left behind to reinfect the system later.
And it's so important to remember that defense isn't just about one piece of software. It's a layered strategy. You've got protection on your device itself, that's your antivirus. You've got protection at the edge of your network, like firewalls. And then on a global scale, security companies are constantly sharing intelligence to track and block new threats as they appear.
Which brings us to a final thought. We have these incredibly sophisticated tools to fight malware, but as we've seen, so many of these threats still rely on exploiting a very, very old vulnerability: human trust. So in this ongoing digital arms race, which tool do you think is ultimately more powerful? The software running on your machine or the critical thinking that's running in your mind?